My name is Ken Schmidt. The distinction between public tower companies and private tower companies, because there is a difference in the way they negotiate, the way they look at their leasehold interest, and the way that they negotiate with landowners, and the way that landowners, conversely, should be thinking about negotiating with a private tower company versus a public tower company. On the right here, you got and I think I put this together a year and a half or 2 years ago, so the numbers may not be exactly correct today, but there's 4 public tower companies, which I've highlighted here. American Tower, Crowncastle, SBA Communications, Vertical Bridge, collectively who own around 115, 120,000, of the 200, 250,000 cell towers within the United States. Vertical Bridge just added 6,500 Verizon towers through a public process, a bidding process that they'll end up purchasing and owning at some point in the near future. And so public tower companies are in a different situation than private tower companies. The public tower companies have master lease agreements with tens of thousands of sites per individual carrier. So American Tower has 43,000 towers, and let's just assume that Verizon is on half of those, like a third of them, whatnot. That's still 10, 15, 20,000 sites that Verizon has with American Tower. Crown Castle with T-Mobile or Vertical Bridge, as part of their most recent acquisition, signed a build-to-suit agreement or extension of their build-to-suit agreement for Verizon to allow them to build more sites, etc. The leverage that a public tower company has over a carrier is significantly greater than, say, any of the smaller private tower companies here. Even the largest of the private tower companies doesn't have remotely the same leverage against a carrier in terms of their master lease negotiations, especially if those private tower companies are looking to get built-to-suit opportunities to expand and enhance and build more towers in their portfolio. Public tower companies have limited termination rights in their master lease agreements, and that goes both ways, meaning that the carrier doesn't have the ability to terminate the lease until certain points in the lease, and neither does the tower company. Once the tower company acquires the towers from the carrier, or they sign a lease with them, they're committing to let that carrier stay on the tower as well. The other thing that I think that we see very concretely in this industry is that public tower companies tend to look longer term. They're thinking longer term. The greatest example of that I can share is that public tower companies continue to be very reluctant to negotiate or adjust some of the most primary terms within their leases. And they do that because the thinking is that essentially you carrier may be able to relocate some of the sites here, but ultimately we own enough of your network or control the land and towers underneath enough of your network that you have no choice but to deal with us. I don't want to say that they can hold it over their heads, etc. It's an open negotiation. There's also certainly it's the carriers and the public tower companies are on more equal footing than I think private tower companies and the wireless carriers. Conversely, private tower companies are competing for build-to-suit sites, as we talked about before. They've got capital that they've been promised, and if they either use it or else they lose it. And it is not a good thing from a tower company standpoint to turn back capital, at least in terms of raising it in the future. And then, private tower companies need to develop scale. They need to grow. They need to acquire or build more towers in order to aggregate and then make themselves more attractive to acquisition, in the future, or just to grow revenue, etc. Many private tower companies are in what we would call build to flip mode, where they build towers and then sell those towers as a group of towers in order to finance, continued construction going forward.